pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the seal symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Oh, well, Mr. Nicholas, I guess we will listen to your presentation. Oh, wait, well, you want to give us a prayer, Amanda?
Put me on the spot.
Sorry.
Gracious Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the moisture you sent. We thank you for the opportunity to gather together to do the business of the school. Lord, we pray that you would lead us and guide us in all that we do, in every task and decision that is made within this room and within this meeting. This we ask in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen.
All right, now, Nicholas Kane. Better win Cage, and then you might be richer than you are. From Stifle.
I don't know, didn't he go bankrupt a couple times?
Good call, Kyle. Excellent call.
I mean, you might be on the beach.
Golly, Kyle had a good day today. Yes, sir. It's all yours. Enlighten us.
Public finance, we serve as the district municipal bond advisor. Superintendent asked me to come here tonight to give a brief update on the funding capacity and kind of what the current PSFA, PSCSC waivers are. There have been some significant changes since I was here a couple of months ago. The state has changed kind of qualification criteria and what you get at certain mill levies based on the size of your school district, and a possible mill levy over $7. You could potentially qualify for full funding of a new school. You could potentially qualify for funding of a new school at 7 mills compared to 10 mills. So that would be a pretty substantial tax difference for the residents, at least a couple $100 a year. And we'll get to it in a couple minutes, but it looks like it might even be possible to have the bond and do without a tax increase based off the current rates that we're seeing for the tool. So if we look at page 3, that will show you what the assessed valuations are here in the community. We look at all the taxable property, and that is how we figure out what the school district is allowed to bond towards. It's 6% of the total valuation. Right now for 2024, the final valuation we got was 70.2 million. We did get preliminary 2025 values earlier today, and that showed an increase of $100,000. Not quite as much of a growth as we have predicted in the past.
Here, give him that.
Not quite as big of a growth as we calculated and seen in some of the past years. We have 7 or 8%. Looks like it'll be relatively flat for 2025. That is going to cause, it looks like the tax rate to go up slightly to pay for the current bond that's outstanding, just given the amount of debt that's there for 2026. And so if there was any bond election, that means there would be no increase in the taxes to fund it. You'll see the drop off in debt services we go further on, but the school district has a total bonding capacity of $4.2 million. You have a little under $1 million outstanding right now. That leaves you with about $3.2 million of bonding capacity. And then downside, you can see how it goes up is the district pays off your debt. The state has removed the bonding capacity requirement, so you don't have to be 90% bonded to fund it. You just have to show good faith effort on your part that the district is trying to fund a new school. From there, if you're above those certain tax rates, they will give you the waiver criteria to meet everything. So if you skip to the next page, you can see the current tax rate for 2024 was a total of just under $6 to 5.94. And then to qualify for waivers for a school district your size, the tax rate has to be at $7. It is $33 a year for a 1 mil increase on a $100,000 property. So that is, about the average that residents would see is somewhere in that $30 to $45 range. Anyone with agriculture or ranch land is all taxed at different rates, and we have those numbers for the back of the presentation. Next page is just showing the current debt that's outstanding and what the maturity schedule is. As you can see, in 2026, there is a pretty large principal payment compared to 2025 and 2027. So that is what is going to cause that slight increases in the mill levy, just because there wasn't as much growth as we've seen. That can obviously change between now and the end of the year. We just got the initial ones. It can change a lot from what they are today. But if they remain flat, it looks like there would be a modest increase to help fund that difference that's showing there. You can skip through page 6. I was kind of moving part of the payment schedule. It's like,
Well, how come that payment in the 26 is so high?
that was structured based on we told bonds originally, and assuming there was going to be some more growth. We try and do it in the early years because we have a little more certainty in the early years compared to 5 or 10 years out. Because we have seen 7 or 8% growth, we thought there'd be at least 3 to 5% growth. I can go back and look to see what the exact projection was, but if it's flat, I don't have that. We also try and structure with a declining debt schedule, so that way, if there is growth, there'll be a lower tax burden, or if there's more needs in the community, you have the ability to layer on new bonds.
Well, let's stop this for just a second.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Can we do a little 101 on? So whenever, say, a bond is passed, can you walk me through the simple generalities of the mechanics of what happens? So the levy goes up. Say that this school, not saying we're gonna do this, but say 100,000, okay? Walk me through, if you will, like what exactly happens in all the different places when that occurs? Sorry, did I get ahead of you?
No, I don't know. I should have started.
Okay.
We're talking about new bonds, how we actually get to that one. So if you go to that kind of first page where we set the total bonding capacity, that's what we would want to look at first. See if you can look at $100,000 or $100 billion in the calendar Turkey. From there, we then have a conversation. We talk to the school needs. There's the rules on IRS rules on how quickly you spend that money and making sure you get it out the door within usually 3 years from the time you issue the bond. So you want to make sure you have those projects to go ahead and fund it. You don't want to just bond the bond because you can do it. From there, the school board, because you guys are the authorizing entity, have to decide that there is a necessity for it. You are not the ones who are actually implementing the bond, and you do not get final say, even if you wanted to. You simply pose that choice to all the residents, and then from there, they have the ability to vote yes or no. So it's good to have some sort of town hall meeting, or at least have more meetings like this where people can listen in, ask any questions. The school district can tell everyone what the projects are and what they're hoping to fund. From there, we go to the election in November. If the election is successful, there's about a 30-day wait period for the election results to get certified. That puts us right into the holiday season when it gets a little hard to get a hold of everybody we need for selling a bond. You also want to look at some of the market timing for it. So we usually wait until at least January to start actually selling the bonds. And then it takes anywhere from 2.5 to 5 months to actually sell the bonds. That depends if we're going to the New Mexico Finance Authority or going through a public market sale where we have some rating calls and other due diligence factors that go into it. We want to try and sell bonds usually by August of the following year, because that's when we set tax rates and voters have approved it. So they want to see some sort of results for what they're paying for. And then from there, it's up to you all. You get the money, you can spend it as quickly as you want.
At the time that you sell the bonds is when we get the proceeds or,
That's when we have access to the money.
and so we get that face value of those bonds.
Yeah,
Basically.
Sort of.
Okay, I'm sorry.
There's some
Yeah.
things that go
Okay,
with
great,
it, depending on if it's sold to the finance authority or through a public market sale. There are legal fees, Steeples fee, so the cost of issuance that would come out of the total proceeds, not from any of your operating funds. If we go to the finance authority, there's not a bond premium, so we just issue whatever amount you guys are authorized to issue. If we go to a public market, because there is some demand right now, we can have a premium for the bonds, which means the investors are paying a little bit over what you're allowed to issue. That would only issue more than the cost of issuance. So that means you would end up having a full project fund of what the voters approved. So there's some benefits to going to the finance authority. They have a lower interest rate, but they'll hold the money and you have a draw schedule with them. If you go to a public market sale, you might be able to get some of that flexibility to have all the money up front and have the cost of issuance paid.
We get the money from the county as a deposit once a month.
And then if you did have the money all at once at closing because it was a public market sale, it goes to, whatever bank you want. Usually it goes to Bank of Albuquerque, they're a trustee. And you still have access to the money. It's like, but
So where I was getting confused, and my apologies, is that was the debt service that is correlated with this. So like on page 5, this one there. So based on what you just shared, link this to so someone has acquired the bonds that our public passes. You are able to sell them, say by August, we get that value. The full value, I'm assuming, goes to the county and they release it per month. And then what? How does this come in? This is what always confuses me.
the full value wouldn't even go to the county. If you have one on the bank, if you have to right in closing. And so it would be, like I said, through the finance authority, you can just call them up and send them your invoices from contractors and they'll pay the bill directly. If you want to be that middle person paying the invoices, the district can certainly do that. You'll have the money and then you just have to tell them that they or whoever it is what it's for and do the drawings that way. But if you want to skip ahead to page 9, maybe, I think it'll answer your question. If a bond is approved, that's how we projected it in control. So that based off of the current debt schedule that the district has over here on the left-hand side. You can see it's 237,000 this year and 350,000 next year, and then 109,000. So you have, we'll call it $240,000 difference right there between those two. That's where you have the ability to layer on new debt because of that declining debt schedule that was put on the beginning, and you can add in, $5 and see a pretty big decrease. You can add in close to that $240,000 maximum to maintain the current tax rate. And so the goal is to balance your need with what the tax rate is going to be and what we think the growth is based off of the current state criteria. They give out waivers at 7 mils and 10 mils. You can see that total on the right-hand side. The bigger school districts have to be at 10 mils. If you have under, I think it's 1,500 students, then you can qualify at 7. So we would want to try and maintain that 7. We're trying to maintain 7.25, 7.5 over that 4-year period the state requires. Just in case the growth does come back, you can see we dropped off the growth on the left-hand side pretty substantially to 0. We're going to revise that even more based off of the initial values we saw for 2025. So that $230,000 in year 1 might end up being $220,000 in 12 months from now when we actually go to sell the bonds. But we have the ability, if a bond is passed, to structure it, what the tax rates are, and have the final 2025 values by the time the election takes place, and then refine that schedule to get close to that 7 and balance it.
But if we do this, this is just bond, but we also, our SB9's up for renewal this year too, our annuity, right?
Ma'am, that's what I want to touch on as well. And that is completely separate from the geo bond. So I can talk about it now if you'd like me to address it. So I can think about it is expiring in 2025. It gives you guys substantial operating dollars through the local tax dollars that are raised, but also the state gives you matching dollars. We do recommend you go ask voters to renew that SB9. It's something that I think 98% of our school districts here in New Mexico use to help maintain their facilities. The money you get per pupil dollar barely covers salaries and other things. SB9 helps some of your ongoing maintenance needs, so it probably doesn't even go all of So that is something that you want to ask voters to renew or can ask voters to renew every 6 years. Your expiration is coming up in 2025, so it would not be a new tax, it would just be an extension of that current 2 mil SB9 rate. And again, applications are pretty stable at around $7 typical.
And what's the process of renewing that? Is that something we have to make sure gets on the ballot, or is that something that automatically
Yes.
get? Okay.
That's before it actually getting on the ballot, so it's going to be a bond.
Okay.
So if every, at the end of the presentation, we'll see if you guys want us to come back next month and have the resolutions for the SB9 mill levy and the bond resolution. There are 2 separate action items, 2 separate things on the ballot. We can have them both in November on the general election, and that saves the district more money. The SB9 can't necessarily wait on. You might not have the money next year if there's not renewed, just because it wouldn't be in place.
Thank you.
So you can't wait, but. I guess that is the current waiver criteria that is trying to pay for like I guess the middle and the April after the legislative stuff that happening. That's what changed the requirements from $10 down to $7. Previously at $7, the state would only pay for 50% of the project. For you guys having a $3 million bonding capacity, that means you get a $4 or $5 million project in total. Now, based off of waiver option 2 at the very bottom, the state does give out a full funding waiver if you qualify and go through all the PSFA and PSCOC process, to where you can contribute your bonding capacity or the maximum amount that you have available, and then from there the state will give you a waiver to fund the rest of the project. Our projection that I just showed you that the bond election was successful was based off of $2.5 million. Again, we don't want to push the bonding capacity if we don't need to, and the state just needs to see a good faith effort. So $2.5 million gets you far enough over that 7 where we think it qualifies as a good faith effort on your part. And then page 11 shows you what you might qualify for with that $2.5 million. You can end up getting. There is a small, I apologize, it says local contribution of 3.5. It is local contribution of 2.5. Local contribution of $2.5 million on the very, very bottom line next to the 7 funding. So the district was putting forward $2.5 million and the remaining costs of the new school. The combined school ranked, I think, 86 on the list this year, which means if you qualify for that priority standards-based funding, right now it's the top 100 schools can qualify for those waivers, and then the school districts would put the work there, but every state can cover the rest. The new school is somewhere in the $40 to $50 million range right now, which means $2.5 million would probably go towards planning and design, and they could cover the other half of planning and design and construction. And again, one thing that you see here, it shows an estimated monthly increase of $1.5 million, being a $4 a month increase, $50 a year. That is likely to take place over the next 18 months and probably is already seen in the past 6 months, just based off of the current values not being as high. So if there is a bond election and communication with residents, it looks like you'd be able to have this election and qualify for the funding without the tax increase. We tried to fund it. I think it was 7.6 is what it looks like it'll be next year, and then the projections are 7.4 next year. So we'll try to bring it down rather than maintain the current rate if we can.
So I have another question where it says the series 26 spring sale, the 2.5 on page 9.
Right.
And then down below on that first row, for 2025, it says fall election. So which we're saying that we want to do a 2.5 bond transaction in November of this year or next year in the spring.
The election, so it would be a $2.5 million total. It's our recommendation to get you guys over the $7 total and maintain that over the 7, and then actually have money to give from the local contribution. That $2.5 million is based off your bonding capacity being about $3.5 million when we actually go to sell the bonds. And then if the election in November is successful, it again depends on how quick you need money, because if you don't have a planning and design or contractor lined up in March to spend money, we don't want to necessarily spend it or issue the bonds, because that then starts the clock. We can wait 6 months, a year longer if we need to. We'll likely wait until March to issue the bonds, which means you guys would have your money in June or July, right around the time and have money here to start that. If you guys are ahead of it and have someone ready to go in March, we can absolutely meet that.
Elena, a parallel process to this, if we go through PSFA, we have to go through the application process like we did for the programs. So we would have to submit the application, and there is some pros and cons if we go before we're fully bonded or after we're fully bonded. So if we pass the levy in November, we could go in November or October to present that letter of application like we did for the teacher housing program and let them know this is pending patches of our bond. But it means we have to go back a second time once it's passed, present the proposal. So Nick and I talked a little bit about it. Probably better for us to do it, and we apply in January to look at the new building at that point in time, because we are being met the financial obligations. So there's less obstacles and questions from the committee is going forward. And then that's when we can tell them when they're planning, they can issue us the award letter once we're fully bonded. And then we start the process of planning and design at that point in time. And then we can work with PSFA, like a lot of other districts done in the state, to get the planning and design phase going. And they cover the initial part, and we kick ours in when we have the money available, whenever we sell the bonds. So if they're paid, if it's a 50-50 split, more than likely. I mean, there's been 60-40s that have been approved by the committee. But most of you look at this as a 50-50 proposition. The state will fund the money, and then we do the follow-up match with the planning and design phase at the beginning of it. So that would be part of our application, would be discussed before the project's approved, and then like we have to do with all the documents for the teacher housing like that, that would be outlined in the actual formal project documents, PSFA, and that page. So at the same time as we're going through the bond, we have to work with PSFA to submit our application, get it approved, and then get the state match going forward as well.
That is correct. There's a lot of techniques I can see to meet the state criteria. We might actually be able to speed it up a couple months based off of what the initial 2025 values. So you might meet the bonding requirements with your existing debt already, and then we issue kind of those waivers. As early as December, you might have to wait until you actually sell the bonds and the superintendent mentioned, but you're already at least see it kind of in front of their list, and if it you can release it for your presentation on the right. And then your local share is 47%, say we pay 53% of it right now. So if you have a project that's $1 million, you'll put forward $500,000, and you'll do that until your $2.5 million is exhausted. At that point, those waivers would kick in and the state would cover the remaining.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
So if you did do a bond election for $2.5 million, you did end up qualifying for the waivers. The district's local share is 47% right now. So you'll put forward 47% of any project costs until that total $2.5 million is exhausted. So on a $1 million project, you'll put forward, $470,000, and you'll just keep doing that, 5 or 6 times until all your money's gone. If the initial planning and design cost is $5 million, that's what it has been for some of our other clients recently. You would end up exhausting your local share and beginning to start paying it.
And if I understand correctly, that we could go out for a bond with no increase to taxes, and we could still do what we need to do.
That is correct, yes. And
Is that your recommendation?
that would be our recommendation, yes. Last time I was here, you had to bond basically your entire capacity, get to the $10 threshold to qualify for the full funding waiver. That is no longer needed. You can do it at $7, and that's what we would recommend. That leaves you funding capacity when the school is actually finished, whether it's education technology, bond. job with their share when it comes to rest. If they don't help with everything, they're not gonna help finish. So you get like facilities and things like that. Gonna help with all the upgrades on the inside that you might be looking for. So having that drop off and not using your whole bonding capacity, in schools finish if you need it. So yes, our recommendation would be $2.5 million, try and maintain the $7 threshold. And then you would, based off of the current rankings, qualify for the school.
Does that make Robbie happy?
As long as taxes don't go up.
Yeah, that's what he just said.
It's changed a lot since I was.
That's how I understand.
Yeah, well, yeah, the legislature did do us a favor there, you know, they,
For the small school district, they're changing the minimums and then
yeah, get a $40 million school for $2.5 million.
a very rare opportunity. The waivers are in place through 2027 right now. We'll see if that changes again or not, but right now they open up the waiver pool twice a year. And everybody on the top 100 is looking at it right now because maybe not everybody, but a lot of schools are looking at it, and it's an interesting option. So there's no action needed tonight after my presentation. I'll follow up with the superintendent. We'll be back in August if you'd like to have the election resolutions for the mill levy and the bond. And again, that's not you guys implementing either. It's just putting it on the November ballot for residents to say yes or no.
And what are they're just saying yes to keep the one that we have in place going?
Yes, that's how the ballot language
Yeah.
read is putting it, continuing the mill levy from 2026 to. And then the bond one will ask them, can the public school district issue $2.5 million general obligation bond and fund, and it'll list out new buildings, repairing buildings, it'll list out the PSCOC applications. It gives quite a bit of detail so people know what it is, and I think they'll hear anything from you guys before that November election.
I have to file it with the clerk by August 26th, so we'd have to act on it in the August board meeting. Yeah, so I have to personally go deliver it to the county clerk on the 26th to have that happen. So, yeah, the day before, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, the 25th, so to make sure he gets his state on the 25th. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll get it on the Monday before the Tuesday. So that's what we'll do. So we get it down there filed. And then once that happens, and Carlos is supposed to be here, and unfortunately I can't get a hold of him, so I don't know, but he was going to talk about the renewal of the SB9. Because there'll be renewal language in there, so it's not a tax increase. It's just maintaining the current level of the funding that's in SB9. Where the increase will come will be the 2.5 million, and he'll have the general obligation bond. And Carlos has already started working on it. The attorneys for cutting he's a bonding attorney to get that language together. He's going to share some drafts. He will definitely be here in August to present. So if there's any questions and changes, you have to change it, get it to me, then I can deliver it to the county clerk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. We'll see you in August.
Right, be careful when you
Be safe.
Put your feet.
Yeah. Shuffle your feet across the ground.
Thanks, Nick.
That was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it was.
I knew that those waivers and stuff were all there, but I didn't know that it was gonna
He
be.
said 86, his presentation said 89.
Mhm.
With all the disasters we have going, could it even go up higher, our ranking?
If we want to go through the process with the FA to do it,
He said.
we could.
He said 86.
Yeah, we're 86 right now on the
Well, his
low.
presentation.
Well, we've gone up 3 spots since July 1
Oh, okay. Yeah.
because other districts drop because projects drop off the list.
Oh,
and we
thanks.
move up.
Oh, okay.
So those that have been awarded come off the list effective July 1. So that's why we moved up to 86. There were 3 projects in front of us that went on. So we could conceivably do it. But after talking with our person at PSFA, we're in the top 100 standards base. And if we go with the bond fully, PSCOC has to act on this because we're in the top 100. And see, there is a benefit to do it. because there could be some emergency funding streams that may pop up through the project that we could do. But that's only for like the top 25 to 30. I'm not sure we get all the way there, but we could go through that assessment if we wanted to. But after talking with our contacts at PSFA, when we were doing this process, going through another complete building eval, we would have to pay for because they've already done it for us to get to where we're at. We would have to pay for it and do another master facility plan, which may not be to our benefit right now because it's already all the major issues outlined in there, and the water and sewer issues that have popped up was in that report, knowing that there could be issues, and all we had to do was report to PSFA. So there would be a benefit to get all the way to 30, but I'm not sure we could get all the way up there. You might get to 40, but I don't want to get that close and feel like something. But yeah, so that would be the decision to go forward. And I think Carlos can go into that next month too with the process with us maintaining that flat rate and without increasing it. That increase is not as significant as what it could have been. 33 to 50 bucks has been about the average across the state for rural districts.
Okay, moving right along. The agenda's okay. Minutes from the June regular meeting. Yeah, I know. I don't even have them to sign. What the heck? Is it summertime or something?
I second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the June regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
I,
We don't have to take a roll call this time, so no. All those opposed, same sign. That was fast. Okay, payroll and bills.
So K-12, we're done?
Done.
You still have all your hair, or are you still slowly losing it?
Slowly losing it still.
So these are the last bills.
Yes,
Or are they gonna bill us again?
that's the hits.
that did.
So that was one of my questions. I saw two for
Yeah.
13.
So they pay, they bill at the end of the month. So May was what we paid in June, and we said, we've got to have your bill to close out the fiscal year to pay off June.
Right.
So we asked.
That's why I got.
Oh, okay, because I highlighted them too. I was like,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. So Dry Fly Enterprises, what is that? I think I've asked.
That's our document printing.
That's right.
Yeah.
I knew you asked Dry Fly. I already asked that.
Well, and they were something else.
Sure.
Yeah, they used to do, then it changed, they got changed. So
How's that going?
Yes.
they're done. We're having a closeout meeting with them. Once we get the drive, which should be tomorrow, we're scheduling the exit meeting with them next week. So we should have that phase of the project done for personnel and student records,
Take them long.
and then we'll look and do it. No, so we have all the first phase done, the 80,000 documents we sent them for student records, personnel, and
Past student records.
And past student records.
We didn't send current student.
we didn't send any current student records, so that's gonna be next phase.
Yeah.
So then every year, do you send them like this year's, like 2024's records?
There is a maintenance fee we can enter into them that's relatively, that's what we'll talk about the exit conference to know what it is, because based on the
Next year.
size and volume,
Yeah.
the maintenance of ours is not gonna be that costly.
I was gonna
It's
say,
big
there's-
cost to get it going, no. We're gonna be forcing up because the big cost is gonna be upfront to put them electronically, and then the maintenance fees are not gonna be that high. So that's the process they go through and they exit with the first one, with the first phase. So
And
I'll have more next month.
Vicky, I have a couple more questions. Sure. On our outstanding checklisting, how can we be a direct voucher posting? That's outstanding.
I asked that same question. We did not enter there. And I have
Like-
rejected.
The hell?
Well, actually, these that are on the. Let me take a look at the one that you're looking at, because I did ask that. I sent a list of things, one being, why isn't the bank statement reconciled? Why did you
Yeah.
get the check that I told? We went through that whole step
Okay,
check.
yeah.
List, and I specifically told them, anything last fiscal year, yes. This year, we're gonna go one by one. May, absolutely not. And they did it, the one guy did it anyways. And part of the problem is they're all in so many different areas, they don't communicate well with each other.
Yeah.
So I'm trying, I think it's gonna end up landing on me, but I
think
asked
so
them
too.
multiple times to fix it. It was his job to fix it, not ours. As of today, they had not fixed I would check.
So we still have one for Bailey Kinnick that's from twenty
So
twenty.
it's an issue, and I've got to elevate that to visions, because there, just so you know, we actually did issue a check to her for that exact amount. That one shows in the system as not printed, but I can't void it, I can't delete it, I can't.
Yeah,
do
they need to-
anything. There's a glitch somewhere that's not allowing me to get rid of that 11520. So I have to elevate, I have to put in a help request to.
Okay.
To look at it. And then I did want to ask, law requires the board to participate in a monthly finance or quarterly finance committee meeting. And I would like you guys to consider doing that moving forward, not tonight, of course, but think about up to 2 board members being on that. I can look at the law. I think it can be 2 board members. And I want to reinstitute a finance committee here, because the law says so, but also I think we can also ask a lot of the more detailed questions and we don't have to spend as much time in a board meeting necessarily. So I'll let you guys consider that and think about that for next month, maybe to nominate a couple of folks.
You better show up next month.
That's how Robbie got to be secretary. Okay, Alita.
My question. Cause I was hoping that you wouldn't inherit
A mess.
mess. It is.
Yeah.
But we are very grateful to have you. And you're probably already way ahead of me, but I'm assuming there's documentation and so nothing comes back on you.
Right.
I mean, it's on all of us. We gotta have the accuracy. I'm not trying to say that, I mean, you have to have accurate and information, but just to have everything documented, so. In the situation where it does, we kind of know where kind of the story, so just to give you peace of mind.
Yes, I've been, and every time I request something, I put it in writing so that I have access. Because, and when I disagree, I put it in writing. I've disagreed with them a few times on some things. And we just put it in writing, so.
And very good. We are probably gonna have an audit finding on teacher because there's budget
I know.
lines that are in the hole that they were supposed to clean up.
In ops too.
Yeah, in operation.
I
Yeah, there's
saw
several.
There were, a few of the, objects that didn't get cleaned up.
Yeah,
Yeah, saw that.
And this is the normal exit strategy for K-12. It's happened to 3 other districts I've talked to that had them.
There
Your
was
contract
no
ends.
handoff.
There's been no handoff. They just drop everything and it becomes ours.
Did this get done? No, okay, let me get that done, or
I mean, but are those gonna be audit findings that just gonna be slap on the hand? or-
no, it's not deadline.
Yeah.
I think will be what I am concerned about potentially as an audit finding could be the payables not rolling right.
Yeah.
Because of the way there's been so many multiple hands. I'm reevaluating the general ledger to see, have I missed anything? That's the only thing that I think I'm worried about, in terms of the finding. I feel confident that, we paid all our mixing on time, all our ERV's been on time, our payrolls have been on time. Everything's been on time, even starting July 1. So I don't think there'll be anything significant. It'll be more, you didn't account for this properly and it didn't roll forward, or you didn't.
Well, and we all know, I mean, that it might be coming, so it's not like it's gonna be a surprise, so.
We just have to do a corrective action plan. And we've already consulted with our attorneys on how to address that with the transition and the lack of cooperation they've had. And the good news is K-12 will still be responsible to be an audit finding against them and the district. So, so that's what it is, because we have the contracts and everything. They were responsible, says in the contract terms. And we've already consulted with our attorneys of how to address this in the future for that. And they will help us draft the corrective action plan to address K-12's inconsistencies.
They report to K-12.
What's the consequence?
That's an interesting concept. We're supposed to report to the auditor's office, and if we have enough of us that report to the state.
yeah.
then you
State.
can-
customers that are to that they can so the size makes a difference. And just
Personnel or was it actual? You know, because we were pretty happy with the.
And that was great. And then all of a sudden they left and then we've had 3 different business managers in a year.
And I think if we'd have just had Gavin the whole time.
Yeah.
It would have been fine,
Yeah.
it would have been okay, but he was in charge of people, and now he's not even there.
No.
So,
Well, good
we
job.
have to go out for an auditor this year too.
Yeah, we've got the RFP going out Monday.
You found firms that you like or want
well, there's a list of them.
right, exactly, but,
So hopefully they'll respond. They have to respond to them.
right, exactly, but you submit, it's one thing, you submit.
Yeah.
But RFP is going on Monday because we finally got official notification from the auditor yesterday that we had to have an auditor. It was supposed to be out in March. So Betsy finally got to us, so I've got the RFP ready and we've got to send it out. I got to do all the process for that, get it, and then get it posted, then we can send it out. So it'll go out Monday is the hope. So it's going to be a quick turnaround on the auditor. It's going to be a 14-day procurement. Could we go contract through CS? We can contract through an auditor through CS that's willing to do it, but there has not been a district yet that has not gone without an auditor when you send it out.
Why would they do that? Just,
Well, I mean,
sorry, I'm just curious why they wouldn't.
if you have material findings or they know you were following
Yeah.
K-12, they may not want to do it.
All right, anything else? Kyle? Bobby? I need a motion.
A motion to, I say, let's approve payroll and bills. Sorry, I'm still.
Still worried about the other question.
My business manager hat, not my board member hat. Sorry.
Motion been made, seconded to approve payroll and bills. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, budget adjustment requests? Any? None?
There will be.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Oh, yeah, but
It was, this is the one, that was pre-approved back in April or May as a blanket for, I think it was May. It was the only one that was done. I said, we would bring it back to you so you would see it, but I'm not asking for any additional approval, just so that you are aware of it. I am expecting to do quite a few maintenance parts over the next several months. Budgets are not in the right spaces. And in talking with Curtis today or yesterday, applications that were done by the school weren't taken into consideration on some of the budgets that were developed and submitted in OBMS. So there's going to be a lot of cleaning up, I think, with the budgets that are going to have to happen over the next few months. But it's low priority while we're getting the new year all set up. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
all right, principal
Do you not have a written report because that was unclear?
of who?
Report.
But
And technically, we've both been off contract for a period.
Yeah.
That's also been the case, but as far as I'm concerned, I stepped in partially the week that everybody was on vacation because that was our huge water project. So I came and helped open up doors and those kind of things. Did not oversee the project because I don't know what I'm doing. So I'll be full honest and disclosure there. But we got them in and did what they needed to. Safety plan's been submitted and approved. Literacy plan's been submitted and approved. So that's
When you say safety plan,
our district safety.
Our district safety
So
plan.
we do that every 3 years.
Every 3 years.
And we were, I think we were actually overdue.
Yeah.
But we got ours submitted. I worked very closely with whoever was reviewing ours. We had some things that we needed to change and adjust. And we got those.
and it has nothing to do with our fence.
No.
And that's just
But-
general.
That's like
okay.
our plan of what are we gonna do to be safe in certain instances and what are we doing?
Where can we find that?
You don't, because we don't want it out public. If you want to request it, you can sit down and read it with me or Amanda or Randa, because we do not put it out on the web to allow people to have access to it to figure out how to enter our camp.
And all our numbers are in Power School, everything came.
Yeah,
Everything
rolled over today.
And then we rolled Power School to the new school year today. We rolled that earlier in the week, and we rolled Power School this week. So everything seems, all of our data is good. We were verified on everything. So. Cool. Good.
Good.
Right.
So next month it's your turn.
So are we gonna be ready with all these holes in the floor and stuff?
We should be. Yeah.
We fixed the one in the elementary. It is done. This one, we ran out of
Adhesive.
today, so we've got some more adhesive on the way, and then that one will be finished. I don't see any other areas that we've got gaping holes that we need.
We had some tiles because of the project up there and like that we have to adjust in the auditorium, and the sink that was caused by the water leak has been leveled to 6 feet. It missed the lower part of the foundation by a foot. We could have been below it and could have had really problems, but luckily they were doing it, and when TLC went in, they leveled it. Unfortunately, a lot of that dirt had washed out, and they're not recommending us to put additional dirt in underneath right now. If we're looking at going for a new building, everything else, they think we can last, and they went from a 5 1/4 line to the connected meter, and it's a 4-inch line now connecting into the rest of the system with the valve going out. So the entire water line has been changed. We can now shut it off at the meter, which was an issue, but we still have other turn off valve issues. Because we have 2 lines to this building. They shut off at the meter. They still run this building. It's supposed to be a master shut off. So they've done some tracing and everything else. It's enough for us. Luckily, we did the toilets down here first, but they did fix the issue up at the auditorium and rock building that when we go to replace the toilets up there, they can shut off that part of campus. But the issue is it shuts off the cafeteria too, so we have to delay that project. They were going to come in on the 31st or the week of the 28th. I was not comfortable with them doing that the week before school because the last project took 2 weeks and we're not starting the first week with it. So I've got TLC on watch. We're going to look at a time where they can come in and do that because it involves the gym, toilets and the auditorium toilets. So we're going to wait and do that to make sure we have a 2-week span. So it's not likely to happen closer to Christmas.
We have water.
We have water, yes.
Toilets are working.
Toilets are working.
So,
Did they come get the porta potties?
yes.
Yes.
I did advise Corona Day Planning Committee that they may want to bring in a few extras because they're wanting to use the auditorium for like a food court area with some food trucks parked out in the parking lots. So I did advise the Corona Days Planning Committee to possibly bring in food potties just to be safe so that you don't have a million people hitting those toilets and causing issues. That might be beneficial. So
I think there'll be a million people here at Corona Day.
there's always. So
Okay, how are we gonna do this public comment? Can we get her on the?
Yeah, she can speak as long as she activates her.
So just to make sure
Okay.
before we move on, I'm sorry, Mr. President. So you're the principal. And so now what's your title?
Director of Curriculum and Instruction and Community and Student Outreach.
Is there an acronym for that?
That's totally awesome. I got communication from Clovis and hers was Executive Director of Talent Management. So I was like, hey, we should change my title.
She will still have some assistant principal administrative responsibilities, evaluations and student discipline. So Brandon's going to take over the K-12 principal, everything responsible for that and evaluation. And those 2 will help do teacher evaluations. And Becky Pounds, who's coming in as math, will also be certified as a teacher evaluator because she's going to work with some of our CTE staff and like that because of her background. So
Also dual credit.
Yeah, help us dual credit like that as well.
Part of my new role is working with CEN on, like I helped with the development of our PD day and finding community members and other things that would tie it more closely to our area. And
Gotcha.
that's-
And she's going to be working with the research-based 3 through 6 Ag Academy. Helping those teachers and helping them get curriculum. She also will oversee all curriculum activities, purchase of textbooks and everything else. And then also work on the website, which Nicole has some responsibility. We haven't talked about it officially yet. We talked about it a little bit with the shift. So that's where it's at with the response, but she will still have some assistant principal responsibilities as part of her duties, as well as teaching BOA.
Do you have the junior high schedule yet?
We'll talk about that in discussion. Yeah, well, it's contingent on us hiring the last 2 teachers this week we're working on.
So with the assistant principal, I just want to make sure if I get approached by one as a school board member, like who's, as far as like who's over the teachers, who's over the staff, who's over the, Curtis, you're over like Vicky and,
Yeah.
and the office staff, and then the principal is direct report for the teachers.
Yeah.
And then the assistant principal is.
I would say if it's more schedule and curriculum
Yeah.
based, that's
Okay,
it.
not
Yeah, that's hers.
A more tactical.
Yes.
Okay, that helps me.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Well, congratulations to both of you. Yes.
So totally awesome and principal.
We have to get her a new nameplate.
All right, public comment.
If you want to speak and address the board now, if you will unmute. you may-
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I guess, I'm a little confused. I've heard conflicting information as far as, is there a plan to combine grades of 6th, 7th, and 8th? And for that to all be with, Miss Clough? That's what I have heard. I just want to get a direct answer from you guys if that is the possibility, if that's what's going on.
No, ma'am. So there we're looking at a middle school model, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in our discussion items. So with 6, the class sizes are too large. And
Sorry.
You're good. So the classes were too large in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th to combine anybody in that space where we normally have combined classes in the past. So our concept and idea was to create a middle school type model with more 6th, 7th. They will be combined for some things, but not for the majority of the day. Like they may attend ag class together as a 6th, 7th group. They might do science together as a 6th, 7th group. But for the majority of the day, they will be in separate classrooms, and they will rotate just like a high school schedule would through math and ELA and an elective and science and social studies and some different things. Now, that may mean that the same teacher teaches ELA and social studies or math and science, but that does not put them in a combined 6th, 7th with the same teacher all day in that kind of self-contained classroom like it is in the elementary. Does that help and answer your question?
100%. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else? Can unmute and talk now. Not that many. Stacy. Okay, Casey, you want to talk to us?
Heck no, I'm eating.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you for telling us that we're wrong. Okay. All right, if nothing else. Miss Steely, you don't have anything to? Okay, public comment. All right, action item, approval of delegation of board responsibility for year 25-26 for business manager to approve bars and adjustments in the absence of a regular meeting and board of the board.
Make a suggestion here. Can we do each one as a separate item?
We're supposed to.
Okay,
They're not listed that way on here.
A, B, and C.
Yeah,
okay.
no, but they're all under one action item. I would like to see A
Yes,
as an item, B as an item, and C as an item.
That's fine. We did
Yep.
that last year with this. It was listed on last year's board agenda.
Okay.
Actually, one individual.
so this business manager to approve the bars and adjustments in the absence of a regular board meeting. Didn't we have something like that?
Yeah, we ended up having to do some.
And did that?
I so move. That's
That
fine.
Okay,
What we did, years ago, correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, is we didn't want to hold things up. So we wanted to give the authority to the business manager, the superintendent, as long as the superintendent initialed the bottom of those before they were done. And then bring them to a future board
Yeah.
meeting just to make us aware. That's what we did last
Yeah.
time, I believe.
yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right, I have a motion. Motion been made and seconded to approve the business manager to approve bars and adjustments in the absence of a regular meeting of the board. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right. Authorization for superintendent to approve out-of-state travel requests that needs approval per statute in absence of a regular meeting of board not to exceed $5,000 in total cost, including room, board, meals, transportation, and registration. Is this on the books already?
Yeah, we got it last year, but it's an annual one you have to do because we just did the MSBA policy too. So we have to do it annually.
So maybe some discussion.
Okay, yeah.
How would the board feel? And does it still meet the criteria of what the purpose is of trying to attain if, as long as it's budgeted? As long as it's in the budget and the board is aware of it. Yeah, or is this something outside of the budget?
No, that's actually budget for professional development. We have a separate line item for that, but we do not categorize necessarily professional development by an activity or thing. It's our lot budget. We also use some Title II funds to help with PD as well. And then we use some direct construction money that comes from the state that's dedicated in title and other forms.
But haven't we, in the past, you've brought it to us for anyway, right?
Yeah, most of our out of state that will exceed $5,000. We haven't had one yet that hasn't exceeded five. Okay.
I can't see this happening. I just can't. I mean, I think I'm not comfortable doing it. That's all I'm saying.
The only example I could think of is we want to take teachers back to Roscoe, the high school teachers, to be able to see some of that in action. If they call and say, hey, this would be prime time for teachers to see this, we're doing this. And that's usually probably a 2-day trip.
Yeah, it's a 2-day trip, usually a day and a half. But you leave on a Wednesday night, you're back on Sunday. So
If that makes any sense. Yeah, to give you like a concrete example to visualize something that would be out of state that would be less than 5,000.
Is there any way that they can still bring it to us and it gets done without a board meeting?
most of the time we know well in advance of the outstate travels, like with Abbott and like that.
Can't imagine an emergency trip planning for PDs.
Yeah, I just.
To me, that would be like, that's truly like the only benefit. If they say they're doing some kind of big project and, hey, you want to go through that?
We didn't know what advance worse things.
So do I have a motion? Well, with lack of motion, it's going to die in committee. All right, authorization of superintendent to act as a delegate role of chief procurement officer to another employee.
I actually think this is a good idea, but I really think that Randa or Amanda need to go take the chief procurement officer training. Or Vicky, somebody needs to, somebody else, and you already done it, right? So
What's our reasoning on this?
You have to have a chief.
We need another person.
just to
Delegate, just in case she's not here.
city else, yeah. Because Travis had it and I was the backup.
Certain two people here, so.
Right now, we only had one because we didn't have a procurement. I was it.
Yeah, he had to,
I had to do it for state law last year, but
Yeah.
they recommend we have two.
So they do.
So,
Okay.
so I will have to submit to them, but the problem is she's a contract service. And then we have to have, so I'm gonna have somebody else internally to do it, which is why we would delegate it out. So I'd have to do my discretion, have them go through the training, and that training's not gonna happen until February, so I have to be procurement until February.
Okay, I see.
You see what's happening because we didn't have anybody last year. And
It really,
I did, we had a contract with REC9 to do it temporary until I got it. Then I got it. Now we got to get to the next phase of getting the second person approved, and the contract with REC9 could be an unnecessary cost to send somebody through training. So let's get somebody else trained.
Pick me.
you need to, you need
Yeah.
to.
Well,
Okay.
as principal, you know, yeah, the picture, that's probably, I mean, I know your plate runneth over, but that'll be good training and education.
It really is.
Would it just be about changing the wordage then, the verbiage from employee to another administrator?
Just say to her.
Yeah.
Well, you wanna leave it open.
Yeah,
Leave it open, I need to.
Yeah.
I still move.
Second,
Motion been made and seconded that we authorize the superintendent to act as a delegate role of the chief procurement officer, that he can delegate the role of chief procurement officer to another employee. Favor. All opposed.
Totally awesome. Like.
Land names.
All right,
That's right.
is that discussion, teacher housing?
Yeah, here's where we're at the teacher housing project. They are working, there was a bonding issue that occurred because the new legislation went into effect July 1. So last week and this week, our contractor and PSFA has been working out on that language. So hopefully I have an answer by Friday of this week of when they will be able to come on site. But they not only had to post a performance bond, they had to post an insurance bond, which was a change in PSFA as of July 1 because the project didn't get done by June 30th. So now they're required to post both. They've been working together on doing that. So hopefully within the next week, they can be on site, but I've got to wait to hear from PSFA on Friday. Then once they get those performance bonds issued, PSFA is giving us the authorization to go forward for state contract for the houses themselves. So,
the whole issue was because they assigned us a new.
yes. Yeah, the new project manager never informed us of that bonding change. And when the new people came on board, the project wasn't done by the 6/30 date that the project had said. So it started now, it's a July 1 to July 15th project. So it increased the performance bond and an insurance bond on top of it. So now our contractor had to get the insurance bond for the project.
So I was
They say default.
confused. I thought it wasn't, it was initially was supposed to have been done the end of July.
The entire housing project was supposed to be done, but the demo phase was still, so this is only the demo phase that's going on. Once we get through that, they already accounted for the bonding with the house because they were anticipating house startup on July 1 to prep the lot and everything. So they're already, whatever contract we go with is aware of that as it goes. It was the demo part because it wasn't done by 6/30 caused a bonding issue that the contractor has to address with PSFA before they can come on site. So hopefully it's Friday, I know the answer. This is what happens, you get in deal and our prior project manager did not. I think to provide all the documents again back to the new project manager because they weren't transferred over from them.
Okay. Is there anybody that you've hired or looking at hiring that's gonna need the housing?
We have one temporarily, possibly one or two of the people we are hiring this week will need one. So, yeah. So we can still go forward and get the new houses and then we can demo the other ones as we see fit.
So what are those, sorry, maybe I'm not understanding, where are they gonna live?
Right now we have one, what's Zamora's old address? It's 130. The farthest one down on Franklin is open. So right now, only one of them expressed a need for housing. The other one's looking on their own. But there's the possibility that I've talked to one of the local people to divide that into two separate units temporarily because the way it's laid out with two bathrooms and everything else. It could be for both of them, but right now only one of those teachers have requested a housing and we have the open one on the end of Frank. Right now. Tony's, once we get everything changed and transferred over, will be available. If we need it for a teacher, or I can move in there and go from there to make sure somebody's in there for the house.
Okay.
Okay.
Security update.
Okay, we've asked, we've had 3 fencing companies, well, 2 showed up and 1 no showed. For fencing, and they're doing 2 bids, one of this chain link around the campus
and one with a regular security fence can be removable because both contractors that came on site knew we could be looking for a new building. And we can transfer those fences over to a new building. So they're designing both. There are some engineering that they're having to do because the slope of the lot and everything else with that. And this does not include electronic gates. It is just for the fencing themselves. The electronic gates would be a separate contractor to a general contractor. One of them, the one that was here during the week when I was on vacation, Amanda was here, they're the ones that have a separate contractor. We're trying to get a hold of to come out and look at the electronic gates for the parking lots and like that. But that's where the process is at. But it is taking a little bit longer because of the slope of the lot. They have to determine all the connections that you're doing with all the plateaus and everything else. But the recommendation was for them to fence in the entire campus and then do the electronic gates like that. And CamNet is also working on the dead spots or areas where there were no cameras put, like for road access and out by the old cafeteria. I sent them the camera areas that they're looking at. They're trying to do it virtually, but I think they're going to need to come on campus to really look at where the cameras are placed and everything else with that. So CamNet's also working on the exterior cameras.
They're not where.
Santa Fe. Yeah. So, but the fencing companies take a little bit longer because of the different slopes, and then they got to figure out how to engineer and design it and look at it. They're trying to use the buildings as much as possible to cut down on the fencing use, and then going from there and going forward. But that's where we're at. We should hopefully have them within the next week or so.
One of the big scratch I was walking around with them was the retaining wall that's on the teacher lot. If they can put those posts outside, that's the city sidewalk. So that may pose an issue. They were trying to figure out how to engineer that, because if you put them inside the wall, it's just, you can jump over the fence. It's plenty.
Yeah, they're gonna have to make it 20 foot tall right there, instead of 12. Yeah. Because they could jump up on the wall.
Yeah.
What about our doors? The doors, the door contractor, we've talked to them about, again, CamNet, we've only gotten one bid. The other two no-showed that were coming out to do the bids. So we've contacted Overhead Door out of Roswell, another private contractor that was recommended to CamNet out of Albuquerque. And hopefully within the next week, they'll be down here. I just met with CamNet yesterday when we had a phone call with them in Verkada. Verkada's planning to come on site, hopefully the week of the 28th, to look at all the issues and everything else. But the doors have been the primary. I finally told him, I says, let's get the 6 doors replaced where the sensors are issues. And let's get those done and we'll deal with everything else. So we have to replace those 6 doors for fire marshal. And then they can make the other doors operational with the sensors on that, because 3 of those doors are our biggest sensor issues. There's a 2 down here and a 1 on the elementary. The preschool one has become a sensor issue because there's no mullion in the middle. So those are the 4 major. Then the other 2, the one on the far side of the elementary and this door, all they need to do is be adjusted. And we can solve the sensor problems and be able to get them, and then Verkada can set up the entire system for us. Okay. Academic plans. Go.
On the fencing, and I know that there's some issues with slope and with some of the things. What do you think, in terms of what if they shared like a month, 2 months?
Yeah.
They're hoping to get us the quotes by end of next week. Realistically, the one that came out of Albuquerque that has an office in Carlsbad, they were going to try to tag team this because they had a similar issue in one of the districts down south. So they were calling their southern office to see what they could do. But when Amanda called me about the issues that was going on, they're not necessarily concerned about the chain. They're concerned about the engineering of, we go to the real security fence that has the sheet metal and all that stuff that's in there. And if we want to move it like that, then redesign it. And then that's kind of where it is. But they're hoping to have quotes within the next 2 weeks at the latest. I mean, they came that time. The biggest part isn't the chain link part, because the other part we asked them to do a more secure fencing if we want to use in the future. That's the one that's causing a little bit of slow. Normally, that's a contractor should have done. I mean, what you did,
So it could happen relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
so. Okay,
I'm so sorry.
No, keep going.
The money side of things, because I know we were working with the county.
Yeah.
It was also possibly, something that could happen with the Santa Fe.
yeah.
Where is all of that? Do we have any?
We have to wait for clearance. We haven't heard anything on the increase in the SB9, possibly for security. That was going to be the one time out. I've talked to Harlan, I've talked to Nick Paul a little bit about it. They don't know exactly where that fell on the cutting room floor with the governor. With that SB9 was approved for security, but we'll start looking at some of that stuff, and with our SB9 money, we'll have to see how much we get for that. Would be another reason why we could push the renewal on that. But the grant money that was supposedly going to come through outside sources, or actually from PSFA, did not get approved. I had talked to PSFA about that, so that's usually been done through that. But there could be PED. They have money sitting there for security. I don't know if they're going to release it or not. This is the secretary's decision, but they have money sitting up there for school security from the last 2 years, and I don't know what PED's plan on doing it is.
Last question. So the proposition and the pitch that was made by both Lincoln County and kind of what we were hoping would happen on the two sheriffs in Capitan and Hondo sharing one, and then Zozo and Corona sharing one. Have there been any updates on any of that?
I haven't heard anything from anything. I heard was from Commissioner Fisher that you're going to bring it up for discussion at last month's. I've been trying to get a hold of Jacob to see what's happening at the county manager's level, and he has not responded. I've tried to stop by when I was down there dealing with the Mosler home that we were buying. He wasn't available to talk. So I've called Harlan, I've emailed Harlan and Nick Paul to see if we can bump this up and see to get them actively involved in it, because they're willing to meet and discuss, because they want to make this part of their safety package for next year for rural New Mexico. They have a group of senators and representatives that want to go forward with this and work with law enforcement and more to see what we need to do. It's fitting right in the realm of what some of the legislators want to do, but we've gotten no response. I'm going to plan on contacting our county commissioner who represents us here pretty quickly if I can't get a hold of Jason.
Okay. And if they need to come, or if we need to go there to a county commission meeting, let us know. I'm happy to do that. If you need any help there, but if they, sometimes getting boots on ground and letting them hear the stories, it goes a long way. So whatever you think there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey.
Anything else on security?
Oh, that should be it for now.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Academic plan MS concept for 25-26 course structures.
You were part of that with the response to Leanna. The purpose behind having a middle school concept, why we pitched that middle school concept. We are working and trying. My eyes are a little bit crossed because putting together a schedule that crosses both areas was a little, it was a lot this morning, but I think we've got kind of a preliminary schedule worked out. Some of that depends on hiring a couple of different positions. If we don't get those positions hired, that's going to totally change what that schedule looks like. If we get those positions hired out, then that's what it's looking like. So what the schedule basically is kind of giving is like an hour and a half ELA and math block to 6th and 7th. That's pretty much what they get in the elementary. It's 30 minutes more than what they get in the high school. So that gives them time for those core areas. And then everything else would be an hour block, just like normal. But it gives them social studies, it gives them science, gives them an hour for PE. And then it gives them a couple options for we were pitching out the ideas of a rotational model for electives so that they get familiar with what an elective truly is, with trying to still preserve, of course, everybody taking ag and still getting that exposure and those opportunities, and then introducing maybe some other opportunities with career exploration. Also having a space where they're getting familiar with this project-based learning, which is what we're shifting the elementary to, but that giving them, what does that research look like? how do we carry it forward? And so, we think we have a schedule worked out, but it's contingent.
Yeah, he's a social studies teacher, and we're pretty confident he's gonna be coming. We're making sure he gets licensed through PED because he's an out-of-state teacher coming in, but he's familiar with the area because he's, was down in Alamogordo for a while when he was growing up, so he wanted to come back in this area from Alaska. And the other thing that we put in there is kind of like we started last year in the elementary is having dedicated intervention blocks for those kids that are struggling. So they work directly with those teachers that are doing it. And whether it's an extended 15-minute block of writing for ELA, we got 20-minute blocks put in there if they need it for math. Or do we use it as an exploratory for them to do some site-based learning? What are some of the things would look like? How do we tie it together with what's going on? Do they do career exploration in that block? So it gives us a lot of flexibility to get in, because what we're seeing is kids are still struggling with math, like post-COVID, and trying to close those gaps and making sure they're going. And that was the entire concept of that. Plus, the other thing is putting sixth graders in a self-contained classroom for the entire day. They need to be active and like that. So they were going over here for science. They were going over here for math last year. So we're just extending that up and having them work 6, 7 together and have teachers work with them and have those teachers work together on those interventions and making sure if they need to be put in SAT or SPED or some of the other things, we're on top of them, make sure you get the supports they need to go forward.
And they will most likely be housed in the high school, but their breaks and everything are off schedule from the high schoolers. So we're not hanging out at lunch with upperclassmen. We have our own dedicated
spot for them too.
Well, what I see that is a positive too, that's getting them a year ahead in the 6th grade instead of waiting till the 7th grade to start pushing them into the career-based deal. You know, they're going to start getting in 6th grade. Go, well, look, this is out here. This is the way I want to go. Maybe they'll communicate that to you. You know, maybe there'll be 2 or 3 that'll communicate that to you, so you guys can start honing down which areas you can in the to bring in the outside people
As
there.
a parent and a teacher, I always felt like really bad for our 7th graders because there was no transition.
Yeah.
You're in a self-contained room and then you're kicked off the deep end into the high school. These are high school teachers. And so those expectations were never
Communicated in it.
or like bridged, right? Like we went from elementary, I'm going to ask you every day where your homework is. I'm going to ask you every minute if you've got everything, to you're a high schooler now, figure it out. And there was never that middle ground to kind of help them develop those skills. And so I feel like our students are lacking in time management skills. They're lacking in organizational skills. They're lacking in some of those things that I felt like I learned in that middle school timeframe, that 6, 7, 8 timeframe, where teachers still, I don't want to say babied you, but like took care of you a little bit more than what high school teachers do. And this allows us to help them develop those skills further, prepare them for those things, so that maybe when we're in 9, 10, 11, 12, we have those skills.
2 more teachers.
We need one for sure for the high school. We're working on another SPED teacher because of caseloads for that. If not, we can still make it work with caseloads for SPED. It would be nice if we hired another SPED teacher or get a SPED EA. That's the other option we're pursuing as well with that, to help offset the caseloads of what's happening in SPED in our districts. So
Without hiring that position, it also takes away some of that intervention.
yeah.
Just everybody having to balance and fill gaps and fill those.
Okay.
That takes care of all the academics.
Yeah.
Okay, strategic planning process, internal, external facilitation, CCS quote for service, timeline for process.
Okay, I've reached out after talking with Cody about CS services. Because of the size of our district, they're looking at a range between 3,500 and 4,500, depending on what the district wants to do for cost for facilitating that. They've done it now for small districts for, I can't remember how long Leanne Gandy said, the person that's in charge of it, but they will do the entire process. I'm waiting for David to get the breakdown, and there could be some add-on services that you guys might want to add as part of that. And then depending on what happens, I'm not sure it would need a board action if you guys choose to pursue an external facilitator. We can contract with CS because they are a state contracting agency. We could just enter them into a state contract. They can set up the initial meeting with the board to set up the expectations and everything else. And then they can go from there. But David was going to try to give it both, but unfortunately he's traveling around the state with CS and doing some of the procurement stuff and everything else across the state. So I could get, once I get that written proposal from him, I'll share it out to the board and he can show you the exact cost breakdown, what the process is. And if the board wants to act, if they want to move forward, if Cody can tell me with board, if you just want to move forward with it. I don't think 3,500 is unreasonable for them to do a complete project. So, I mean, there are some additions on there. He said the worst case scenario could be $5,000 for the district.
And that's if we went with, CES.
Yes. I talked to Quality New Mexico. They're looking at $10,000 to $12,000 to do the same process. That's why I say I recommend we go with CS. They come forward because they work with other districts. I know I talked to their superintendents. They were very happy. It takes a burden off the administrative team for us to work with them. They will help facilitate with us and everything else, those discussions. They'll do staff, they'll do community, they'll do students, they'll do the entire realm for $3,500 to $5,000.
I know this is just discussion. I mean, I don't want the board to hold anything up as far as if you need us to approve anything.
No, you won't need it because underneath, if all I need to know if the board's willing to go with CS, they're very good at doing it. I'm comfortable with them. I've worked with them before in the past, talking with the people that are in that division. They're all very experienced facilitators. And they're very good. So I'll just, if they come forward with a quote, we'll just start the process and I'll get them to set up, and reach out to Cody to kind of set up a timeline and schedule when they want to come in and do everything else. So we can go from there.
Sounds good.
Well, I know the reason why I had to put it on there is because of the comment that you made, you know, about it to look, maybe look into somebody outside. So it did take some pressure off of them. Yeah.
Well, like Chris can be, rather than him being the facilitator, he needs to be part of this is my opinion.
Part of
Of the strategic
process.
planning, just like everybody else, and let's see what else does with that. What question is? Oh, so how does it work in terms of, I'm just familiar with how we did it at the co-op, so
Yeah.
this could be completely different for the schools. So we used to do, we did our strategic planning, we were a calendar year. So we were 12/31 year. And so we would do our strategic planning with everybody. I would start with the employees usually in the fall of the prior year to have all their stuff to me by the spring, so I could work with it and with the managers. And then in the summer, the board and the executive team did theirs. And then we had all that approved in the late summer based on the board and executive. And then that gave my CFO marching orders and the management team to prepare the budget. And our budget, we usually tried to have, in a perfect world, it didn't always work this way, but and we didn't have to report to the state like the school does, but we tried to have our first draft by the November meeting, our final draft the December, and have a working budget come January. So my question is, we're a little bit different as far as fiscal, I get that. But do you think it would, as far as helping with budgetary type things, to change the timing of our strategic planning?
That would be a question for CS. I mean, they're starting a lot of districts right now. The honest God truth, they do it based on the academic year because that's when everybody's there. And when they run into problems, they try to do stuff over the summer, participates for teachers, and they may not be full. And we do have some dates for our PD during the year on Fridays that they could come in, and they're looking at short periods of time, and we can adjust those dates. Because when you authorize the calendar, we just authorize 5 PD dates. And if we move it, all we gotta do is announce to them, but though that'd be a timeline question for them. And the unique thing about the state of New Mexico, school districts are not required to have a strategic plan. It's not required. It's a recommended good practice by NMSBA and everything else. So the timelines, I've been in New Mexico now that I'm going on my 9th year. This is the 3rd district I've worked with a strategic plan. One we started in January to get ready for the fiscal year. It was a 3-month process in Silver. And the one we did when we were at Gallup was a 2-year process, working with aligning everything because of a much larger district. I was at the end of that one. So it just depends what the board's desires are. CS can move as fast or as slow as you guys want. And those will be the discussions you guys will need to have with them. on doing that and lining up, because they will probably have multiple people, multiple facilitators orchestrating these meetings, and then the community meetings as well, to make sure that's all going on. So you guys will set the timeline to drive the ship on this. And if you want it done by the time our budget pops up in April, that's a realistic, because I asked Leanne a question. I says, will you have it done by budget time? He says, we can move as fast as slow as you guys.
I
So,
want to move fast.
Yeah.
Because I think moving too fast, especially
Yeah.
with all of our changes and everything, I think that the boat and the waters is doing this.
Mhm.
So just to keep reminding everybody.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm in favor of a strategic plan. I think they're important, as long as they, once you're done, they don't sit on a shelf and gather dust.
Well, and won't they go faster after we've done the first one?
Yeah, once you get the first one in a line, it'll make the process a lot easier.
Just go back and tweak.
Yeah.
But with us never,
Yeah.
ever doing one.
Yeah.
Not that,
Yeah,
I mean,
so. And Silver's what we did. We didn't do a strategic plan. We did 1-year strategic action plans. Is how we did it at Silver, because that's what the board desired, is what are our goals as a board? What do we want to do for the district? How we're going to measure them? So our process over there was a little bit different. We used the local facilitators from one of the groups over there that had done it for school districts and businesses for a long time. When we were at Hagerman, we used CES, and we were going to use CES, but unfortunately we didn't get into 6-year plan at that time, and we were using that. But at Gallup, they actually use some of the services contracted with CES as well as other facilitators, and multiple facilitators working on it, and then the district did it. So you can either make it a year-long process, 6 months process. It's going to be a determination of the board how you guys want to proceed. So that's the good thing with CS.
strategic plans, are they a 1-year plan or are they a 5-year
You
plan?
can do multiple year, depending on what you want to do. You can do 1-year action plan, or you can do 3 to 5 years, depending on what you do. I'm concerned about what Atlanta brought up. We just want it sitting on the shelf. We want that to guide our decision making and everything else.
So
So
and that's what they said.
and I think,
Never,
yeah,
at all the school board meetings, I mean, all those people say that they use it. But there was some comments saying, yeah, we've done it, but we did it just to be you and me.
What I normally see, I talked to some other school boards, just to try to kind of see, what are you guys doing? They're usually a year.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm familiar with too. But, you have to, the one thing you guys be thinking about, when we're getting ready to make these decisions is not only, how long do we want to do this? How long do we want it to take? But I mean, and I wasn't trying to say, I don't want to take too long on this still, because we've got a lot going on. So it is important for all of us to be on the same page with a strategic plan, because we do have a lot going on. And having a plan in place and everybody's on board, we know what the heck is going on, but make sure, we've got to make sure that we give Curtis, very straightforward and defined in terms of, and it's not just what the board comes up with. I'm very curious to see the teachers and the staff, because they're in the weeds, and every day we only know a very small piece of different things. But once we have it put together, make sure Curtis understands our timelines. Of course, he has to play a role in that too, and making sure we understand. And then we got to hold each other to that criteria. And there has to be a reporting mechanism. Whether we want that monthly, whether we want that quarterly. But if you don't have those things, when you get done with it and going through it and you get done with it, then it does sometimes maybe not go exactly the way everybody wants. So I just be thinking of that as a board and everybody, we're just going to make sure we go, when we come out of it, we all know how we want it to roll. That's just my 2 cents.
Anything else? All right, let's go on to communication. Written report structure, administration, board administration. What are we thinking?
When reports, they only give out a point. I mean, that's the thing. We just want to write reports to write a report. We want to know what the structure is, how to align. The strategic plan will drive a lot of this in the future. But in the temporary, when you want the written reports that was asked for last month, I just want to become a task. I want to actually be information the board wants to gather when making decisions like that. So that's why I talked to Cody about this, of what we want to do with the structure of those reports. So that way we can make sure it's the information you guys need, you want for those reports, and how we move forward to making sure we're doing the follow-up necessary and making sure we address the needs of the board, the information they're seeking.
So you're asking a question?
Yes.
So, you know, I think that seeing the success and the progress of our students, I think that's huge. I think that's what we're out here for. And I don't know. And some of this hit me when I went to the law conference. They were sharing the different type of reports that some of them get and see, and and I'm like, you know, I don't know that we've ever seen that report. And so I went to some websites that they were kicking around, and I remember Travis sharing a few of those a few times. But I think that's important because if the students are succeeding in almost all cases, we must be doing something. So that one was at the top of my list. I don't know how it was to the board. That's just me. If you all have some ideas or thoughts on reports, standardized information that we could be getting. I think it'd be nice to know and celebrate the successes. You know, we hear about some of the issues. I mean, you have to go into the weeds with those, and nor should you. But kind of the, 10 foot in terms of kind of sharing what maybe not working at the school. I think we need to do a better job of, we need to know those things based on, I need to know, but we need to celebrate the successes of things that our kids are doing, and our staff, our teachers. The other thing I wondered might be neat to, maybe this is, sorry, I feel like I'm the only one sharing these ideas, is to further grow our kids, and possibly even maybe our teachers too, is for you all to consider. This isn't a written report, but a report to the board, is maybe a committee are able to do that if you like the idea, and let the students come present to us every so often, and maybe classes, or maybe share some of the great things going on, because that gives them that chance to present, and that could come about some of these other things that we're working on. Those were some of the ideas I had.
One idea I had, and I was talking to Roxanne about it, thought it was a good idea to be able to write a newsletter, have the kids write a newsletter. And we discussed that.
We discussed that with Roxanne. She was on Monday.
Tuesday.
It was Monday.
Yeah.
Because today is Wednesday. It wasn't in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it was yesterday because Terry picked up her. Yeah. It's one reason she came in yesterday. So we discussed that.
Monday morning. Whatever, but we did talk to Roxanne.
Closer to Willow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there was the one
Yeah.
out there by Megan's.
Yearbook staff. But that was part of the problem. We only had Emma and Carly for a long time, and then this last year finally picked up.
And one thing Amy and I talked about too with this is we want to get our students engaged in that part. And we do have the ability to do a monitored website for our journalism class and like that inside our website, which would be a good way for them to not only get the skills of developing their website and everything else, but one of the reasons why we did what we did with the administrative structure was to have Amanda work with them, plus work on these other things to get our kids more actively engaged in the CTE realm and doing that. And this could be all the way through 6 through 12. Putting news articles out on the website, because there's going to be that writing component, because 6th and 7th grade deals a lot with nonfiction into writing standards. So it could be them all the way up till senior English. We have a senior class next year, and looking at doing that, and then how often would we want to do it? And then the other part that came out of the conversation we had with Roxanne is how we cooperate the village with their notifications going out, because I know they do a good job of sending out the text alerts and like that, but what other news could we go out and doing? I know mailing out them usually wind up in the garbage for some families, but there's some that really take them seriously. So we had to look at all those aspects and look and see. Or maybe we work it out with our local postal agent, they can put our newsletter into the mailboxes for free as a nonprofit, which we did in Crown Point, because we had to download a newsletter every week.
We used to do the monthly happenings that went out with the bills, the
Yeah.
village bills.
Village
And
bill.
we
Yeah.
send the newsletter out there as long as I get them to Terry fast enough.
Yeah.
We can include them with the village bills, but that doesn't necessarily hit everybody outside the village. And so then figuring out a way to get those beyond, because if you hand them to the kids, they're not gonna be in lockers or their backpacks, and nobody's ever gonna see them. So figuring out how to distribute those. Another thing, you were talking about like the data dashboards and looking at those. There is a push from the state of New Mexico to figure out how to better represent. If you have less than 20 students in that data, it blocks it out. So our science is never reported because we have less than 20 students that test in science. And so there is right now a task force to figure out how do we report the small schools data because they don't meet that threshold, and how is it comparable to large school data if you're going to compare them together percentage wise. How does that, what does that look like? And so that those dashboards will also be evolving and changing throughout the next couple of years to better represent the small schools across the state of New Mexico. And so our plan, especially with the project-based learning, is to have those students and those teachers come do some presentations, but to also work through that middle school and high school level to get them a little more involved. I think COVID put a big squash on some of that, and the kids aren't even as comfortable and confident presenting in front of people as they used to be, maybe. And I don't know if it was just that we've all been in survival mode for the last 5 years, or we just didn't want to add anything to anybody's plates, because once we discovered Zoom, everybody's plate is now overflowing immensely with every meeting and everything happening on top of each other. And so that's weird. We even talked about having students do morning announcements, because the last few years I've been terrible about announcements. I get busy and right off the bat, they don't get the pledge and they don't get their morning announcement. So we have the students do things like that.
Just maybe not just the journalism class, but if anybody wants to contribute something to it.
Right. Yes.
You know, again, Ben and I also talked about maybe starting the student council there. And having them have their voice and have them do announcements and things like that. So more so than just distributing information.
Or like concession stands. Like have around here that's food during the school week. Making it more active. And
I have another question that goes kind of back to the curriculum. Since 6th and 7th, they're going to be kind of combined individually. Thanks for Cal. So Roxanne could have an extra time.
Yes and no. So if you look at the schedule, a lot of people right now have an extra time because we don't have a senior class. So we've worked in those intervention periods for the high school, and those online kids are better monitored and not just sitting in here freely. So on online or face.
They're going to be monitored online. Like, is she going to just be a babysitter? Or is it going to
No. So with dual credit now through Eastern and Columbus, we actually get to monitor the campus side. And so she gets to check on due dates and things like that and making sure they're compliant with those due dates. And with Edmentum, that teacher is actually grading the papers, they're setting the pacing guides, they're doing so any other online days or things that we do through Edmentum. If it's interventions, we can use Edmentum and Study Island as a tool, but they're still having to provide that support in that instruction.
So have you guys working through Eastern, have you looked at the possibility of her even teaching classes?
Yes.
Yes.
Online for Eastern?
Yep.
Yes.
And doing all of our dual credit for our comp one and those things.
Yeah.
So she could, I mean, she's got 2 masters, I think.
Yeah.
And she's a nationally board certified teacher. I think we need to, as long as she's willing to do it, take advantage of that. And I think I think sometimes you get complacent and you get comfortable in your position. I think this would be a good challenge for her.
Yes.
And I think you would rise to the occasion.
They're working, Eastern Rios is working out exactly how they want to credential those teachers and what those requirements are. As soon as they refine those, then that she's first on our list to say, hey, guess what?
See?
The other part, Barb, of that too, with the other part to this equation, is we have the full first semester, we want to offer some different electives in those time slots as well. To allow teachers, because we can't offer half credit electives as well. So if there's something that teachers really want to teach, we're going to encourage them the 21st and 22nd to look at what those electives are. And we can look in our NOVA data as well as look at our reporting to the state, how we get them additional elective credits. The thing is, we don't want to lock in specifically all those classes because when we see your class back, it's sort of scheduled back out of whack. We have a little bit of flexibility this year because there are no seniors. Not on the way right now. Going to jinx us, but that would be the way we have to address it. And those extra, there's going to be extra career skills, no seniors this year. I mean, just the way.
Even if you get on,
Yeah, we rotate on.
We potentially do have one Windburn kid, but he's not sure. He's got to bring me his homeschool. So I'm not sure if he's left.
Okay, cool. All right.
so anything else? So on the communication plan,
Is it better if it just says like update instead of report, then it doesn't feel so?
We can.
Like, I just wanna know what's going on. That's all I wanna know.
What are the things you think
Want
about?
that from us?
How it's going for our teachers, our staff, our admin. I mean, I kind of have an idea for where my kids are at school, how things are going, but I have no idea. I mean, I don't even know what the high school schedule is. I mean, I have no idea about any of this stuff. I mean, that's kind of what I think about. Most of the time I know when there's a game, but
Yeah.
It'd be good to see, thank you, you just gave me another idea.
okay.
You know, and I think the only way that you do know is if like your kid is in the elementary, you know kind of who's in the elementary, your kid's in the high school. You kind of know what's going on in the high school. But if you don't have kids, like, now you will,
Right.
everybody does it. Maybe don't have to have names or anything, but like a schedule, like a report every month shows like the head count in grade in pre-K, K, first, all the way up to 12, and that might be helpful, just something like that. I'm not sure if that's what you're getting at, but that would just keep us familiar with the classroom sizes and that can maybe take care of the principal gives us the count. That could be covered in the report. It would be there every month and we would have it.
I mean, thinking through like calendar type things like
Yeah.
tour events.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, like I know the guy at Carrizozo, he does the weekly thing and I'm sure it just gets stuffed in kids' backpacks. So the parents that look or ask for it, get it.
Mhm.
So I understand our, being timid about that on making sure the parents get things like that. But I mean, those things would be nice too. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm in a different situation than most because Casey works here and I get to hear things.
even on the website, if we get the website up going good, where you could put the whole calendar month up there, and
Yeah, exactly.
to put everything.
You give me squat.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Well,
I know-
Christmas, I did give you guys stats and then Christmas, after Christmas, it became a rat race. Those didn't always happen, but I did just-
survival.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, even just get it on the website, that this is going on. I mean, you guys do a good job most of the time, but get it out there from Facebook, or
Yeah, through the app and
through
like.
the app and all that.
If we can get the students involved, though, that takes it somewhat.
Well, that
I
takes,
think that's where we were. I mean,
Right,
you're just-
right. That was just another,
Yeah.
Thing that we had to.
but if you get somebody to,
What do you want from us? It's,
For me, and not to point fingers or anything at anybody, because I know that I fall short a lot, but I think in the past couple months, we've had conversations that felt frustrating because it was things that were in the written principal's report or in the board minutes or in the board packet or whatever. And then it was like, we'd never talked about that. And for me, I was like, man, we spent all that time writing that down.
and
And then you're asking the same questions over and over. And so it felt, to me, it felt like that investment for you guys as board members was not there. It's like we show up for a 2-hour meeting and then we are done. And we don't revisit. Our job is the board until the next month when we come in for a 2-hour meeting. That's just my perspective.
So, and you're not gonna offend me at all, so give me an example of like one of those things, just so I can pay closer attention to those types of items.
Well, current, you said head counts by grades. I did do those on the principal's report when they were written.
Okay.
So those have been there.
Okay.
The monthly happenings, I think I've given before too. I know there's a lot of, and I get nobody wants paper lying around, but there's been times where we've had to print off all those packets, especially in the policy packets, and we spent maybe 3 or 4 hours, and then we look at the boardroom table when you guys leave and everything's sitting here, and we're like, well, are they even gonna remember that when they walk out of this room? Are they even gonna look at that again? Or is it gonna be another question when they come back next month that, have we talked about that? Are you sure? Well, yeah, it was in the packet you left on the table.
So I don't like to take, just because of discovery.
Right.
I don't,
Yeah.
and that's
Right.
why, it's not because I don't care about it, I have to take all the documentation home.
Right.
Because of retention schedules and discovery and so on and so forth, so.
And I get that.
So that's a lot of reason I don't take a lot of stuff or keep it. Just so you know that,
Yeah.
but, so,
Another side of that, just to expand, is there's been times where several have come in and they're like, well, I didn't even get a chance to look at my emails. So you're reading it as we're trying to go through. And that's a little frustrating for us who have prepared those things in advance, if that
so,
makes sense.
so I had something, in that regard, in terms of to tell the board, because that puts you guys in an awkward position as it does Curtis. I agree. I used to get frustrated as a CEO with my board, because they would not come prepared to the board meetings. But then on the flip side of that, when you have because I was also an employee, full-time employee coming to these meetings. And so I would try to, think of that with my board also being farmers and ranchers predominantly. But we do need to all step it up and do a better job. And if we're gonna be sitting in these chairs, then we need to, and we're gonna ask you guys to step it up. We gotta do the same. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So, we've got to try to, and I know maybe not every meeting, everyone will have a chance to go through everything, but to try to be better prepared, we need to do better also. I agree.
And then you brought up like at law conference, seeing all these different reports and things. And the one that struck me was when they gave out the awards for the number of board members that had gone to trainings and meetings. There was you and us. So we're never going to be in the running for those plaques and those things, only because the entire board was not at law conference together as a cohesive unit. I kind of had some mixed emotions about that and felt a little frustrated when you see other schools, much bigger schools who have much larger boards, everybody showing up together for the best interest of the school. And I'm new to this. I mean, I've only been to law conference twice. I mean, so I don't want to cast stones because I don't know what happened previous to me being an administrator. But it kind of, that part of it, I was like, oh, yeah.
Well, the good news is on the trainings, and I've talked to Cody a little bit about this tonight, it was coming. And we talked to Megan and Gino up at Ortiz and Zamora with the new law that went into place. There is more than MSBA they can give PD and training. Like example, if we would have a bond workshop with next month with them, that counts as your finance hours. For one, so for the new board members, it would be 9 hours they have to do, and the old ones would just have to do 5. So we can bring those trainings to here, and we don't always have to go there. I encourage you guys to go to the local ones, our regional ones, so you can interact with those boards. But if there are issues where you need to do it, Cody and I need to get a schedule together to make sure, because this is the pilot year. Next year it counts against the district's accreditation. It's one of the 10 points made by the accreditation law the legislature made, which I totally disagree with, that legislators dictating it, but they put it in the law. It was signed with those hours of training. That could be held against us in our accreditation process. PED, what does that mean? We don't know, because they don't have rules in place to enforce it. So what does that mean? Do they come in and ask the board to be replaced like Avalos, Lewis, and Floyd? Do they replace the superintendent and men? It's a very gray area in the law, and it would be a black mark for as much as good that is going on in this district that would happen. I'm not blaming board members or anything else. We're all busy, but we now have the ability to bring that on site. If there are particular areas you want to do, CS is actually contracted to be able to provide some of this. With Vicky being our business manager, we might be able to get her approved to give us some of that. And doing that. Yeah. She's been approved in other cases. So if you guys are particular areas, I know there's 5 areas we have to hit. We go through and we work on that, and that could be part of the strategic planning process. I see that as a very good fit inside there as a commitment to what goes forward. And then that gives us an idea of where I send my admin team to go support the board in those areas, or how we wind up looking at responsibilities and all those things. So that's got to be part of that strategic planning process, because now we got a lot more flexibility. We don't have to go to Joe Can and MFA every hours and they pass around those folders or the sheets that they do, what you saw at the last one, to sign the dates to do that. In particular, we can actually report those hours. They will give us certificates. People can do it. Our attorneys can do it, and they're working on other mechanisms to do it through the state. So, I actually reached out today to a couple of legislators on this to get their interpretation of the training rule. I got called by one of them out of the blue. Rebecca Dow called me and says, "What do you think about this training rule? Because PED's not giving me any guidance." I says, "It's good that our boards have flexibility to meet the local need of what we want." Because you guys, honestly, I mean, Barb's dealt with PSFA before, probably a little bit in her career, but getting into a building project and all the state red tape that we're going to have to go through once that gets passed in the bond. I didn't want to rain on Nick's parade. The state, because they're funding almost 100% of that building, is going to have a lot of say in what we can do and not do by the standards. That's why he said we want to have that reserve money at the end, so we can add to things in that we may want to have. So I think that's all good, and looking at that long term and the growth of the board, and we've always been about a growth mindset since we tried to get here to get them to do. We've been investing in people, investing, and looking at doing that. So I think those are the conversations we have during the strategic planning process and see what direction we want to go.
But I know in the past, I've been on here for 8, 9 years. When I first got on, first of all, I didn't even know we had to go to those things. And then when I found out, I started going to a few, but it was just kind of the boards. I mean, it was just kind of we just.
It was kind of mentality of let's save money.
Yeah.
Because we were on this behind. I built budgets for operational and 1,000 function. That, because we're here for the kids, and that's how I built our budgets. 95% of our budget went into operational and direct instruction, and that was it. Everything else, I just kind of put money there just in case.
Right.
And so,
And I understand that
So-
piece, but but part of it from my perspective as an administrator is how do you make these decisions if you don't necessarily know all the legalities or all the statutes or all the, and that's why I try to go to law conference, because there's a lot in the principalship piece of it that I don't know those laws. My prep program did not cover a lot of that.
which is a really good thing. And I have to say though, Travis was very knowledgeable about statutes and law. He was probably the best one I've ever been around. I'll give him that. He was amazing when it came to the law and statutes. And so, I mean, I think we just relied on him for that, but we can't do that anymore. And I think it's a good idea for us we need to step it up. I'm with you.
Because we do have
But
a
I do
district
know my
meeting,
budgets were very.
once every 3 months or something.
Once every 3 months, it rotates.
So the thing about it is, it's like at 5 o'clock in TRC on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's
Isn't section
now the one I did do was 5:30 cloud golf, which I took off. But that's doable. But to make it 5:30 in TRC, you got to take, you got to leave right after lunch, and it's just hard to.
Our district is the biggest one in the state for the MSBA.
See, Anthony's in our district. Las Cruces.
Yes,
Gadsden.
yes.
Gadsden, I mean, not Anthony, Gadsden. So,
He wasn't there.
We've asked superintendents. I know there's going to be a push by the legislature, because that was brought up by Bill Souls and Andres Romero last session. That's why we're not using the virtual capacity we've created for all these meetings with board members to kind of work with them. So I have a feeling it may gain a little bit more steam with their accreditation piece and more boards asking for it. That's where you guys need to lobby with your MSBA people to get that because unfortunately, I mean, even a law, I mean, I've been to law conference. This is the first year I missed law conference since I've been in central office. I happened to be in Texas presenting at the World Conference over there at the time. It's the first one I missed, but the last three have been pretty much identical. I don't know if this year's changed. I talked to Amanda a little bit, but those she was brand new and doing it. But you see the same presentations on Title IX and like that. They need to look at diversifying what they do in that for boards and doing that. And I know that,
Goes all
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
I was one of them when I first got on regularly and I was like, this is.
Yeah,
right.
they're repetitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get that, I was being new. And
Now the policy one in February, when we go up and meet with legislators, is a very good one for everybody to get involved with. That one, you actually be able and set up times to go talk to your legislators and you get to hear what they're talking about policy and they come tell you what's happening during those sessions. So
You need to remember to do that a little bit in advance.
Yeah.
Don't get there that day and then try to call them and set up a time to go see them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and you also,
In the round building quite a while.
yeah, you also get up there and you follow your administrator around because he'll take you.
They had a whatever meeting.
No, I think he went and met with him and we should have went with him.
Well, the problem was that the only one the superintendent's at that one was Sonny Lou. So
Oh, no, the one that they had with Harlan.
Oh, Harlan, yeah, that's the one I got to miss because I was driving down because I had to stay here for a PSFA meeting.
So we just need them, so.
final point in my perspective after the last couple of months is, when you do have somebody call out an issue, if that's communicated to us so we can make sure that we fix it and we don't just sit here and stew about it and everybody's emotions get high. Because
Would that be,
a lot of,
them, have you asked them, have you heard this, or should
well, and it might
We
be,
just take it to you.
it might be just a, hey, did you talk to so-and-so? They had a question or whatever.
Yeah.
That to me would go a long way for making our job a lot easier because you guys were bringing up conversations that we've never talked to those people, or if we had, we thought it was resolved and then it wasn't. And so that makes our job really,
They thought they had another ear to turn, and try again. So
it just makes our job hard to.
Well, and just, and this just very nonchalant, but totally great. But at the same time, I think that those things happened because administration, when things were happening, weren't getting on it and taking care of it. And so I agree with you. And I don't think that those things will happen like they did. But as soon as stuff happens, there's got to be consequences. There's got to be communication. And we've got to get on it or it's going to continue to happen. And I'm just being very blunt. So just while we're having to come to Jesus, I mean,
Yeah, no.
that's how those things happen. Right? So, but I agree, totally.
And that was my thing too, is just, I mean, if you guys just communicate with us, and I do think that, like having the calendar dates and you guys being aware, or even, being on campus whenever things are happening, like their little academic stuff that they have, their little awards that they have every 9 weeks. Might even bring a realization to parents like, hey, it's not the board against the administrators, like they're all.
yeah, if we know,
Yeah.
if we knew you guys were having a little work deal, I mean, I would.
But even,
And the only one I'm missing is the teacher's luncheon at the end of the year, and I've missed the last 2 years in a row. Free lunch.
but another big one was kinder 6th grade graduation. Yes, there was not a single board member at 6th grade graduation this year.
And I had to make dinner.
Yeah, and I get things happen, but it's only there's somebody, yeah, at least enough.
Happened.
Yeah.
We were going.
No,
We also got to be aware that we have more than.
I also didn't
members
know
here. I got to
adding
make the meetings announcement that there's going to be no action taken. So what I'll do in the future is make sure we have all those lined out, that the board members are, quorum of the board is present now. We're in violation of Open Meetings Act. So you're allowed to do that.
Anything?
If you have more than 3 board members, except at a sporting event in the state of New Mexico, we're supposed to have a public meetings notice. We can do a general action too of that. That at school related events, we have a resolution of board saying that there will be no discussion of board meetings. But we can do that. I'll talk to, we did that at Silver because I had 3 parents that were always at basketball games.
one of those at law conference that I sat in on though, like they brought up the fact that if you show up at a basketball game, if somebody brings up anything,
Yeah.
you guys discuss anything, that is a quorum and that's a direct violation of Open Meetings Act. And like, it made me like,
don't speak to each other. Steve. Not even say hello. Because it makes me nervous.
Not to give you guys assigned seating. I know where Robbie's sitting in the back row, so I know where he goes. I just have to, and Elena's down by the scores table usually, so that's good. And we just have to make sure Kyle and Cody are in different parts of the gym when it happens. And when Barb shows up, she can stand by the wall with us, help monitors too.
Is there anything else? I mean,
We're a team.
Yeah.
I have other items.
okay, go ahead. Okay, so we're done. Communication pretty much taken care of. Other, okay, shoot at her. I mean, don't shoot at her.
A wind and an SB9 expenditure as an action item to approve at each meeting. The SB9 is supposed to be approved by the board. I really like wind expenditures too. And then with regard to the rent on the new teachers or in Tiffany's house, is that going to be a benefit through W-2s, or are we going to charge a normal rent?
That's an interesting question, Barb, because we've gotten different opinions talking to people. What is normal rent for IRS people? Is it with ours or not? Most districts are charging between $400 and $600, and they're not having issues with regards to that, but it depends on
The normal rate of rent around
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It's not 1,000 to 1,500, but it's definitely not 200.
No.
I think if we're going to charge 200, then it needs to go on their W-2 as a benefit
Yeah.
to make up that difference. And we've never done that, and I always push for that, but I was always vetoed.
So I'm just off the top of
It's not fair to the rest of the people.
Right. So off the top of my head with that, I think you guys could set what the
Yeah.
rent is through an action item. And then anything that is under that would be considered a benefit. That's paid less than that, we could put it as a benefit item. So I think you would have that.
It's just like a phone or a car.
Right.
Yes.
Correct.
To me, I mean, it's a benefit. It needs to go on their W-2.
So regarding the wind and the SB9, those reports and the checks that you approve every month are from all funds. So I'm not sure, and the reports that you see have those funds in there. So what else are you wanting?
Just SB9, and I mean,
Well, they're already being presented. They're already in there. There's nothing separate.
but with detail
Okay, so you want a detailed report.
on expenditure on SB9 and with
Expenditure.
expenditures.
Because we used to.
Yeah.
We used to. Travis would come to us and say, look, this is what I,
This is our SB9.
this is our SB9 purchases where this, you know, whatever you use it for, whether you use it for chemicals or toilet paper. Or,
Just for those two. The others just roll up by function.
Yeah.
And you can probably not even, you can use wildcards or zeros for location and program.
Right.
Not question mark.
Yeah.
Zero. No.
And I'm a graph person. She likes looking at the numbers. I like looking just to maybe, because I do it all the time. I normally had just for. Let me see. Let's see. You want that?
Graphs that you can explain.
I go back and do graphs.
Oh, yeah, I know. That was
Well, they're all PDF anyways, but yeah.
okay. You good?
Yeah, okay.
Everybody good? Anybody else got anything else?
And
Anna?
on
Oh.
communication,
Wait.
on communication, I appreciate the conversation on those items. You know, I think especially since our constituents that were here several board meetings, you know, I guess I just wanted to make sure that they know that this is something that we're all also, we want to fix it. And, you know, I think that they would like to know what types of things are happening and that this is important. Because I'm not sure anything has been reported back to anyone, and I know we're summer. But I guess I would ask, and I think this was something I asked
one of the board meetings when we had all the guests and they left, is that I think it would be a bit based on what the team decided to do based on all of the issues. And I know that there is a plan, and strategic planning will also help, but we can't just leave folks hanging. Obviously, there were concerns and issues, and so you've got to respond with something. Whether it be a letter that goes to all the families before school starts. But I think that we need to say, hey, we're working on these things, and then these are important to not only the parents, but to the school and the school board. And these are some of the things that you're going to start seeing, that we've been working on through the summer, that, this is going to start happening. We better have some of them ready to go before school starts after first, because I think that there was great concern from many of our parents in terms of communication. And I know last year was a crazy year with different things that we had never dealt with before, and that was part of it. But they want to see resolution, and so we better have something ready to share, whether we have an open house the first week of school, and Curtis and the principal address the group, or we have something in writing that goes out. But maybe an open house that first week of school, maybe the second week, sorry, most of us will be at the fair. The first week, sorry, because that doesn't help the situation. That's the way it worked out. Maybe the second week we have an open house, and the school board, we serve hot dogs and hamburgers, and we all give a presentation and address some of those issues and some of the new things that you want to do. Maybe that's a good way to jumpstart the year. I mean, that just throwing stuff off the cuff. Kind of just get some of that out.
Look forward.
We're having a PD on the 24th.
Voluntary PD 21st and 22nd, though.
So because it's fair and it's like, it's one of those kind of. But we don't have supply lists.
Well, supply lists are out right now for elementary. Amanda was finishing, we had to wait a couple more teachers to get it, so those should be going out here soon. And then the first week is part of the 21st and 22nd in-service is how to do it with the students and staff that are out. So there's gonna be some different things done the first week, and we'll have a better answer after the in-service on the 21st and 22nd.
Cool.
So
That's one of the things.
they're gonna do some project-based learning stuff as an experiment to get teachers to try it. I mean, we're not expecting to be experts, but I've had conversations with teachers. Everybody doing this and getting kids engaged, look at research models, all that stuff. We're not expecting you to try to develop those relationships, understand the skills the kids are getting, and then do you work together hard to do it well? And there's some other national activities we talked about for team building with students as part of this process. But until we go to the 21st and 22nd and get that entire first week lined out, we'll have a better idea. But yeah, we've talked about doing some exploratory games with our high school kids to get them to understand something. So.
Our elementary teachers asked if they could also come in like on the 23rd and the 24th after CEN to do like their scheduling, their planning, to make sure they have everything laid out. And getting those intervention times, make sure they have those.
Sounds good.
It just keeps ringing in my head. You said that Harlan hadn't got back with us about it was funding for the fence.
Right, what's what happened to the funding once it got approved by the state but went to PED. So he wasn't sure if it got vetoed by the governor or if it was given to PED and PED has control of it. They're still, I mean, every Republican's asking that because it seemed like it was line item vetoed out, but yet PED has all the security money sitting there. So there's going to be a person. It's not that Harlan doesn't know what's going on. It's that they're trying to find out all the security money they've given to schools, where it's at in the last 2 years.
Okay. I just
Obviously, the PED's coffers, right?
Yep,
Right back.
they're all interested.
it was just rolling through my head.
Yeah.
I know we had a parent who
Yeah,
is a lobbyist, volunteer time,
yeah.
and came about it as far as I know that. So
A small capital outlay was being so so there's for next year. Yeah, not like public schools pretty much vetoed out the budget.
Vicky, do you want anything from us besides the finance committee?
Our finance committee is what I would like. I would like to make just a comment. This is probably one of the healthiest public conversations I've ever experienced in my life. So I want you guys to know that I'm very impressed, and that's how you move things forward, is by staying as a complete outsider. Like, I'm completely outside. I don't know any of the inside things that have happened in the past. I know nothing. And it just is refreshing, because it is what brings you together so that you can move forward. And so I just have been very pleased and hope we can continue the just honest conversations. We're all working to get better. We want to do right by our kids and by our staff, and we just have to communicate well and work through the problems when we have them. So thank you.
Thank you. I move to adjourn.
Second.
I will be calling.
Wait a second.
All those in favor? Calling you guys about a special meeting.